The New York Knicks are mid. Absolute bona fide definition of mid. Prime Taylor Swift. 1 hour marinated chicken. Driving on the literal dotted line of the highway levels of mid. And their loss to the Bucks in the in-season tournament just proved that. Even with their #1 star level player Julius Randle playing the literal best game of his career, when they played against an actual contender in a playoff-like setting, they lost by 20. So I'm sorry, Knicks fans. I don't think y'all can win a championship as presently constructed. But if you grab a seat, if you stay tuned, if you like, subscribe, and drop a comment real quick, then maybe in the following conversation you will be able to glean some information that will shine some light onto your team. So sit back, relax, and get ready for the Sweatshop OT!
The thing that I wanted to get in with the New York Knicks, and something that I've kind of seen year after year with them, they have great depth, but they're one of those teams in the NBA right now that does not have a definitive third guy. There have been times that I've seen Quentin Grimes go off like he did earlier this year and last year in the playoffs. You know, there's a few stretches where he had close to 25 plus points a game. Beyond him and the occasional RJ Barrett game, there's just nobody on the Knicks that I trust. And it's so disappointing.
I don't think they have a reliable first option. That's my main gripe with the Knicks. I feel like their supporting cast is primed for a playoff run. Emmanuel Quickly, I like a lot. RJ Barrett, I like in a supporting role. Mitchell Robinson, I feel like is a really good athletic defensive rebounder.
I love Josh Hart.
Josh Hart is a very good defender, rebounder.
Josh Hart is perfect.
I agree 100%.
If the Bucks were able to acquire a player like Josh Hart, they'd close that gap between the Boston Celtics, in the Eastern Conference.
I 100% agree. But the Knicks, they got a good supporting cast. They've got I think Jalen Brunson is a top 25 player.
I think he's in that A- category.
Exactly. A 20 to 25 player ranking in my book is a really good second option. And I think Jalen Brunson is a good second option, but they have a good second option. They've got a good supporting cast. They've got a decent coach. My only problem is their first option because they don't have one. Julius Randle, God bless him for shooting 14 of 19 from the field, but Julius Randle is not a first option. He is not a second option. He is a good six-man in my eyes on a championship level team. He is a good six-man, but he is too erratic on offense.
I could see him as a second-tier secondary option. I would rather have him. He does offer more versatility at that 4 spot than we give him credit for. For somebody that can, go get a shot, for a power forward, he's one of the better shot creators. But it's just when there's no established pecking order on that team. And that's what's really frustrating, is because I'm talking about there not being a third option. But you've highlighted the point that they don't know who their first or second is either.
But that's my issue with the team, though. You said they have to choose between Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle on who's the first option.
Right.
I am saying that neither of them are first options. I think Jalen Brunson is their best player, but I think Jalen Brunson has to be the second best player on a championship team. I think he's the 21st-ish best player in the league. Julius Randle, you're right, he has all the tools, but he's just too inconsistent. He's a decent defender, but you're getting decent defense on top of offensive inconsistency. And with those two together, I just don't see a first option. I see a really good six-man. But I mean, we saw it in the playoffs. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before against the Atlanta Hawks, where the Hawks treated him like the first option on the game plan, and they gave him the brunt of the defensive focus. And I'll look up the stats. I think he had maybe the worst playoff series I've ever seen let me pull it up real quick. 18 points per game, 29.8%, not from 3, from the field. 29.8% from the field. 2 years after that, where they actually advanced a round, he scored 16 points and shot below 40% from the field and 25.8% from 3. So I'm not saying Julius Randle doesn't have the tools. He's a good offensive player, but they're treating him like the first option. As long as Julius Randle is your second or first option, you are not winning a championship in my book.
I have thought about too, is like when you have teams like the Knicks that, you know, they have great depth for the team that they have, right? I was going over it. The last team that I remember seeing being like, there was no definitive like top 5 player that was playing for that team that year that won the championship. The last team to do that were like the Spurs. The Spurs are, and they had, you know, 4 Hall of Famers. There are so many good teams like in the league. The Kings are in that echelon as well, where they have a good team. They have a good team, but I just don't ever think they're going to make it over the hump because the last decade has showed that you have to have a top 5 player in order to even make the finals. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's true.
And they need to figure out something with RJ Barrett. They need to move off of him. I think it's time to go.
I don't think it's time for RJ Barrett to go. I just think it's time for us to stop expecting him to be a star. If we finally just shift our focus from RJ Barrett was drafted after Zion Williamson and Ja Morant, he has to be at least close to them. If we just shift our focus from that and just expect RJ Barrett to be a solid role player or a high-level starter, I feel like that's where our focus needs to shift. I don't think he needs to be traded. If they have to trade him to get like a actual first option, then I'm fine with that. I don't think it's so much that he needs to be traded. I think he just...
Well, my whole thing with trading RJ Barrett, they had the opportunity to get Donovan Mitchell.
Okay.
But they didn't want to move off of
Okay,
RJ
we're gonna stay on the Knicks. We're gonna stay on the Knicks then. Because
that's the point I'm trying to make.
We're gonna stay on the Knicks.
Like,
yeah, say your
they
point. They
should have known internally that, hey, this isn't really our guy. We've had, 2.5, 3 years with him now, and we know what kind of player he is. We've given him the touches, we've increased his reps, whatever. He has shown us. And the Utah Jazz were wanting him and draft picks for Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell, I think, puts you in that top 15, maybe the cusp of the top 10, on any given night, best players in the league. That's where I think they screwed up at.
That right there, I completely disagree with. First off, I don't think the team was properly built around RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett's a slasher. He needs to have shooting around him. And in my opinion, they've never had the requisite amount of shooting around RJ Barrett. That's first off. Second off, you said trade for Donovan Mitchell, and I'm glad you actually brought that up because it was a point I wanted to make, but I just completely forgot to mention it. We just had a discussion about how almost every team that's won a finals ever, essentially. The only ones that are coming to mind right now are the Spurs and Pistons, but almost every other team that's ever won a championship had a top 5 player in the league. Yeah. And I just feel like the Knicks just gutting their roster for Donovan Mitchell, who in my opinion is a 20 to 15-ish best player in the league, is just gonna put them back in the purgatory that they just escaped out of. And I'm telling you right now, I can already see it happening. The Knicks have had such a good track record for the past 2-3 years, but I still haven't trusted them. And I am telling you right now what's going to happen. The Knicks are going to lose in the first round to some team that we do not expect them to lose to. And then they're going to trade for Donovan Mitchell. They're going to gut their roster to do it. And then for the next however many seasons, they're going to win 40-ish games. And then the Cavs, the team they're trading him from, are actually going to perform better than that. I can see that happening right now. If they are not trading for a top 10 talent, unless the Sixers don't work out and they can trade for Joel Embiid, or if Giannis just happens to want to leave the Bucks, they should not be trading for any talent. They should be looking for free agents. If Donovan Mitchell's contract comes up and they want to sign him, I am completely fine with that. But they should not be trading assets away for someone that is not a top 10 talent, in my opinion.